David Spada is a successful attorney whose dream was to become a sports talk show host. Elliott Harris is a Chicago sports columnist who wanted to expand his media presence. In the next hour, they combine their talents and love of sports and women by interviewing former professional athletes and lovely ladies on sports and torts. But keeping the boys out of trouble isn't always easy, because when David and Elliott are together, they have more fun than should be legal.
Welcome to another edition of Sports and Torts on TalkZone.com with David Spada and Elliott Harris. We have a great show lined up today, a couple of very interesting guests. We will start off with Martha Jo Black, who is involved in fan experiences with the Chicago White Sox, but I think more importantly is the daughter of Joe Black, who pitched for the Brooklyn Dodgers and was the 1952 Rookie of the Year and roomed with Jackie Robinson. Here's our interview with Martha Jo. We are at U.S. Cellular Field, which is what this is, home of the Chicago White Sox, and we are with Martha Black, or Martha Jo Black. Which do you prefer?
You can call me Martha Jo Black.
Okay, Martha Jo Black, who is in charge of the fan experience for the White Sox. But more importantly, I think, you are the daughter of former Brooklyn Dodger pitcher Joe Black, 1952 Rookie of the Year.
Yes.
And you were born after his career was over. But I'll assume at some point you had the opportunity to talk to him about playing in the big leagues, playing in the Negro Leagues.
Yes, my father and I spoke quite a bit about Major League Baseball as well as the Negro Leagues, and playing in Cuba as well.
Okay. So he started off, obviously, before baseball was integrated in 47 with Jackie Robinson.
Correct.
He played 9 years or so in the Negro Leagues.
Yes.
Must have started off when he was a teenager, because by the time he was a rookie, he was 28 years old.
Correct.
So it's like
he was old.
He was no spring. I mean, it's sort of like a very experienced rookie. He played for the Baltimore Elite Giants.
Correct.
What was that like?
What my father said, because he had Roy Campanella on the Negro League team with him, that it was great. They were like brothers, that they all traveled together. They took bus trips to every different city. It was enjoyable because he knew who Satchel Paige. He played against Satchel Paige and double duty. Radcliffe, that was a big White Sox person here as well, and stuff like that. So he said it was definitely a good experience, and he was doing something he loved.
Okay. Did you ever get to go up against Josh Gibson? Do you know, the legendary catcher?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he ever went against Josh or not, but I'm sure he did because they'd probably be around the same age. I'm sure Josh was just a little bit older than my dad.
I think.
Yeah.
And also, I want to say, I think Junior Gilliam also was on that Baltimore team.
Yes.
So, after you had Jackie Robinson break the color line in 47, then you had Campanella, Don Newcomb, Joe Black, Junior Gilliam. It's like...
Right. The Dodgers had more, obviously, after Jackie, than the Cleveland Indians had Larry Doby.
Right.
As the American League first.
That's when Bill Veeck was the owner.
Right.
And I think Bill Veeck, years prior to that, had tried to integrate the sport, but met with resistance from the owners.
No, that's true. Branch Rickey had resistance as well, but I guess he was like, I'm going to do what I want. So.
You had a chance to see the movie 42 yet?
Yes, I did. I saw it last week.
And your critical assessment?
I thought it was great. Obviously, for me, I teared a little bit because I was like, oh my gosh, that was my dad's roommate. I mean, not really in the movie, but, that was all the things that my father was telling me about. But it was a very, very good movie. So I think everybody should see it because it's just not about black or white. It's about integrating, which I think is integrating society.
Right. It's not just about baseball.
Right. It's about society as a whole, and that's what I believe Jackie, and he reminded my father that was a bigger picture for what they were doing. They got to play something they love, but it's about integrating this society because that's what we needed.
Now, your father roomed with Jackie Robinson with the Dodgers, correct?
Correct. His rookie year in '52.
And did he ever talk about that?
He, which is mentioned a little bit in the memoir that I have about my father, but that he was a little nervous the first time because he got there early. You know, when I'm kind of hereditary in that you're nervous, you get somewhere early and you're like, okay. And he's like, oh, there's 2 beds in here. I don't know which one he wants. And he was like looking around. He's like, okay, I'm just going to wait. And then Jackie walked in, and then Jackie, said, hi, Joe. And then they started talking, and Jackie's like, take whatever bed you want. And then that's when they just had a good conversation. Jackie, of course, I think, to my memory, asked my father, so do you know how to fight? And my dad's like, of course I do. And he's like, okay, well, we're not here. And kind of explained the reason, because this is for bigger than you and I. It's for we need more people to be called up to the majors that are also black at the time. So Jackie sort of played the role of Branch Rickey, as Branch Rickey had explained to Jackie. Right.
That,
That he needed that. I mean, I think at one point, even to this day, a lot of people need reminders of this is the bigger picture of why you're doing this or why you're asked to do this. And my dad and Jackie became very, very good friends. Unfortunately, when Jackie passed away, my dad spoke at his memorial, and to my understanding, I was a child, so I don't remember all this, but my mother said that they had to pick she and my dad up in a helicopter with me, and my mother thought we were going to die because we were in a helicopter to fly my dad to be next to Jackie and Rachel.
Yeah. Now, both Jackie and your father enjoyed careers after baseball.
Correct.
that had nothing to do with baseball. Jackie was with Chock full of nuts, and your father was with Greyhound, and Greyhound was based in Chicago at the time, correct?
Correct. It moved to Arizona in 1971. The executives from Greyhound Corp, when my father got out of baseball 5 years after, in '57, he became a school teacher in Plainfield, New Jersey, and he took his students to Yankee Stadium, Ebbets Field, because they were still around. And they were at Yankee Stadium when my dad was with students, and there were 2 executives from Greyhound. Keep in mind, during this time was the Memphis riots, and there was a Greyhound bus that got burned. And they were like, oh, we need black people at the time to get on the bus. That's some of our money. We need somebody that they're going to see and recognize to a certain degree. And so they stopped my dad with the students because they were all it was Yankee Stadium, getting all the autographs, and Mickey Mantle, Moose Gowan, I think, was on the team at that point. And they were talking to my dad, and the guys were like, aren't you Joe Black? And my dad's like, yeah, hi, I'm Joe Black, and shook their hand. They're like, don't you? And he's like, oh no, I'm a school teacher, which obviously back then they were very surprised. They were like, a school teacher? Yeah, these are my students. They're like, and so you graduated? Yeah, my dad's like, yeah, I graduated from Morgan. Stayed, I took some classes at Seton Hall and Rutgers, and I have a master's degree too. And they're like, okay. Well, here's a business card. Call us. We'd like to talk to you. And my dad's like, okay, thinking, you don't really want to talk to me. But sure, I'll keep your card. Right. And I'll give you, and my dad wrote down, because he didn't have business cards for a school teacher, wrote down his number at home. And they called. And my dad's like, okay. They're like, we'd like you to come to Chicago. And so they flew my dad to Chicago, interviewed him. My dad just took vacation from teaching. And so I guess that when he met with them, they're like, yeah, we'd like for you to start, and this is what we want you to do. And we want you to communicate with the African-American community to say, Greyhound's still safe, we'll protect you, we're here to drive, that was a bad incident that happened, we will protect you by any means. And my father's like, okay. And then he went back to Plainfield, and he was like, they offered me a job. And at that point, he got advice, I cannot recall from which friend, to say, don't quit, take a leave of absence. And so my dad took leave of absence from teaching, came to Chicago, and started working his way up the corporate ladder to do things for Greyhound.
And I have to assume that's a pretty big leap for him, because he had grown up in New Jersey.
Right. Plainfield.
And
which is all mixed, a community.
Right.
So, it was from white, Hispanic, people of religion, the Judaism or whatever, and it's no one was rich, really. I mean, there were some wealthy people, but there were very few. And so my dad felt very comfortable speaking to people, and he knew that because he was just out of baseball, so to speak, that people may recognize him, if they liked, mostly men would recognize him. And he's like, well, and he was confident enough, thanks to his mother, reminding him of that she's like, you can do anything that you want.
Okay. So it comes from a family of strong women?
Yes, my dad had a lot of them.
And he has a daughter who's one as well.
Oh, thanks.
At that time, baseball players, even when they were playing, needed jobs in the off season.
Correct.
And a lot of them would go into selling insurance or automobiles or whatever it was. Do you know during his career what he did in the off season?
It's so funny, yeah, because when he told me when I was younger, but that I became older, and I was like, no wonder I like clothes so much. He worked in retail stores and different shops. I have some picture as my dad and some boxer, which please forgive me, I don't remember his name, and I had to find the picture to be like, who is this? But they were in a retail store. My dad did that. I know he just picked up any job. I mean, they all had to work. I know, to my understanding, I think Newcomb? No, not Newcomb. Campy or Jackie, somebody owned a car dealership.
I think Campanella, and it may have been after his career, I believe, owned a liquor store.
Okay, I knew somebody owned
liquor.
liquor.
Might have been during his career, I don't know.
Yeah, so they all owned and started to do different stuff because they had people investing money because of who they were, because they knew people would come.
Right, not a lot, but several ball players would end up owning bowling alleys that they could put their name on.
Right.
And, or some of the more fortunate ones might have a restaurant or something like that.
Right.
See, you were born after his career was over.
Correct.
So you only got to hear second or third hand what he was like as
a baseball player, yes. And I had to see pictures of him to believe that he ever played.
Because you said, oh, that's a nice story.
Yeah, because my dad was...
Really? What were you?
My dad had to show me a picture, and he autographed one of my pictures to me, and he's like, this is a dad that you didn't know this body, that you've never seen this body on me before. Because when I was born, my dad was 6'2.5", over 300 pounds. So I was like...
So you weren't familiar with the slender...
I was not... I did not know who Joe Black at 6'2.5", 215 looked like. I was like, who is that? And then my girlfriends, because they're my age and a little bit older, they were like, your dad's really good looking. I was like, that's disgusting. This is who he is. That is not him. Okay, that's totally two different people. So
now you do have an older brother.
Correct.
Who
was born in 52.
Okay, so 52 was a good year for the Joe Black family.
Yes, it was. My brother was born in May of 1952. So he was a baby.
So he probably doesn't remember your dad.
Not that
playing,
much. I think he remembers a little bit. I know when my brother, because my brother's mom and my dad, they lived obviously in Brooklyn, back east. And so when my brother was old enough, like especially in high school, and my dad was, doing some stuff and coming back and visiting all the time, that my brother was a great athlete himself. And so he would do something great on the basketball court or something. And then the article would start with, Joe Black's son, and then I guess to my understanding, my brother would get very, very upset.
Well, don't you think that's understandable?
Right, it is. It's kind of like King Griffey Jr. and Sr. You're like, really? Junior kind of made his own name, I think.
Right.
But,
yeah.
It's one of those things that, and my brother did get upset about that, and his mother was like, you will always have that in your life, because your father was somebody that people knew. And you should be proud of that and not upset about it. And, you should take it from that. But I can imagine it's somewhat hard. And then, for myself, thank goodness I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't play softball or anything. So.
Okay. You look at your dad's career, and it started in May of 52 and it ended in September of 57. So he would have been 33 or so.
Right.
Which, back in the 50s, was about normal for a player's career to end, sort of like early to mid 30s, and that was about it.
Correct.
As opposed to nowadays, where you see guys last into their 40s sometimes. I think part of the reason careers are longer is medical technology, and another part is the money that they can earn.
Yes, no,
right.
that's true.
It's like, okay, I can make $10,000 pitching, or I can get on with my life.
Right,
And,
right.
If your father got on with his life.
No, he definitely did, because he had his elbow, he had chips in his
Okay.
elbow. That bothered him, and he didn't want to get shot up to numb it all the time and stuff like that. My whole side of my father's family is very anti anything doctor. So
Really?
he was like, okay, I'll do it. And he would be good for a while, and then it would bother him, and he's like, it's not worth it. So he relied on the good second part, which was the educational part that led him.
And I will assume that he passed that along to his children as well?
Yes.
The importance of education?
Oh, yes. Lectured many a day. Lecture about study this, read this, and don't forget to save your money. You're like, okay, yes, we do.
And you listened.
Yeah, a little bit.
On occasion, like any kid, on occasion.
On occasion, yeah.
And then about 10 years after they tell you something, the light bulb goes on.
Yes.
You go, oh, yeah, he's not as dumb as I thought he was, right?
Exactly. It's like, oh, yeah. And then you start to sound like your parents after a while.
Right.
Which is scary.
So, sometimes that's good. Sometimes you sort of recoil it when that
Right,
happens.
and then you slap your own hand.
You go, oh, my
Yeah.
God, I've become my father, I've become my mother, whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So how does Martha Jo Black end up with the White Sox?
I got out of school, graduated from Cal State LA in Los Angeles, and my dad was a consultant for Major League Baseball at the time. And he's like, oh, all right, I'm gonna do a resume for you. And I was like, didn't have a job, Dad. Remember, because I was blessed. I didn't have to work. My dad paid for everything for me. That was the corporate side, not the baseball side.
Right.
That did that. And he was like, oh, I have some friends. So he sent the resume to MLB. He's like, okay, my daughter needs a job. And Major League Baseball started the Arizona Fall League. And so I started with the Fall League in '92. And then after that, it was kind of like an internship. And I was like, oh, it's nice. And my dad's like, you don't want to live here anymore. In Arizona, I was like, yeah, no, I don't. Yeah.
Well, that's where you grew up.
Yeah, that's where I grew up. But I went to school in Atlanta. I went to Spelman my first couple years. And then I graduated from Cal State LA in Los Angeles. I was like, yeah, Arizona's kind of boring. I don't want to stay here. And he's like, okay, well, send your resume to people. And I was like, and again, I have no idea what this resume is. And he just so happened to send it to Jerry Reinsdorf, who is a huge Brooklyn Dodger fan. And so they connected, and the White Sox called me, and I interviewed, and I got the job in the ticket office in 1993, and had to work my way up from there.
And you must have sold a lot of tickets.
No, just all that customer service, all that great customer service that we go through here.
After you get hired, I assume at some point Jerry Reinsdorf says to himself, I want to talk to Joe Black's daughter, because Jerry would have been, I want to say, a teenager
When my dad
about the time your dad was.
Yeah, a lot, probably young. Well, yeah, because when my dad got called up, Peter O'Malley was 14. I remember Peter O'Malley told me that. And so Jerry must have been probably 16. I think they're a couple years apart. But yeah, no, it was actually funny. I knew my dad told me that about Jerry, because I had no idea. I'm from Arizona. And so I was working in the ticket office, and where the ticket office is, it's a hallway, and Mr. Reinsdorf was walking in, and I was like, oh, I think that's him, because we had media guides. So I knew, I looked at the pictures.
You knew the picture.
Right, and I was like, oh, I'm college educated. I know who I can pick people. And so when he walked in, I was like, hi, Mr. Reinsdorf, I'm Martha Jo Black. And he looked at me, he goes, you can call me Jerry. And he grabbed my face, he goes, you look just like him. And I was like, uh-huh. I mean, I was 23, and I was like, I have no idea what to say. But I was like, okay, nice to meet you. And then I just went back in the ticket office. And that was it.
That was it?
That was it. I mean...
You guys have never talked about the Brooklyn Dodgers or anything?
No. Jerry and I have spoken probably more, besides hi and how are you, general conversation, since my father passed away. So he looks out for me a great deal. Because he and my dad were so close, and my dad told him everything. The lectures that I did not get, he gave them all to Jerry to give to me, and I'm like, hey, oh my God, my father's not gone. Okay, so I get lectured a lot.
He lives on.
Yes, he lives on.
It's
just a shorter, smaller version. Yes, he lives on.
A little and wider.
And a little pale.
Although if he gets out to Arizona,
he gets tan. And then when he does come back from Arizona, he goes, now I can say I'm your adopted dad. I was like, yeah, I guess so. You're on the back of the bus with me.
I remember Jackie Robinson being honored the 25th anniversary of breaking the color barrier. Mm-hmm. It was 1972 All-Star Game, and Jackie Robinson's, by no means content with where African Americans had gone in the game. They'd gone to the playing field, but he wanted to see them managing and in the front office. How do you think your dad would assess where Major League Baseball is today in regards to all that?
I think he'd be happy because there's a lot of people that were in the, Jimmy Lee Solomon was in Major League Baseball. I know he left to do some other personal things that he wanted to do. Like Frank Robinson's still involved, and a lot of teams. Don Newcomb still does things. I think Lou Johnson for the Dodgers. So they still have roles within the organizations, which is good because at one point they were never asked to have any roles. Where other players would be, and they're like, "Okay, what?
I'm not chopped liver. What's going on?"
Right? You're like, "I take showers too. You can call me." And so I think my father would be happy. I think that at this point, because I am his daughter, I think he would like to see probably more African American women, maybe get a little more involved with Major League Baseball, like various teams. I can say, from what I know about being in Chicago, that I have a lot of friends that are doing things in the African American community, trying to get kids to not be around the wrong people, to do bad things in the street like other people have done. And they're like, any minority female doesn't know that there are jobs for them. Because you think of sports, that's all men.
All right.
That play. And I think they should know that women of any nationality, white, black, or purple, can get a job in any sport. You just have to go to college and do the right things and try to, if that's anything that you like to do. I mean, because a lot of girls do sporting activities. So you have some interest in sports, so why not work within a sports team?
Yeah, and it's not a question of whether Martha Joe Black can throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball or hit the ball 500 feet.
Right.
There's other skill sets that are requisite for a variety of jobs.
Right, and I think that so many people just don't know about that.
I will assume Jackie Robinson and your father would be happy the day they see an African-American commissioner.
Yes.
And, I guess, yes, you have Magic Johnson as a part owner, but I think...
Of the Dodgers, of the billionaire team, yes.
Right. But, I don't know how big a piece of the Dodgers. I think that a lot of that's sort of a PR.
Yeah, I think it's very quiet. I don't know how.
I think you'd like to see an African American who's not a former player, who's just
an investor,
a business person
that
like
takes care of the
Jerry Reinsdorf was. He may think he was a better ball player than he was, but it's not like Jerry Reinsdorf was a Gold Glove shortstop or anything.
Right? No, I mean that's true, but I definitely think that honestly, and I'll be honest, and it's going somewhat to politics, that I think they both would be proud because we have an African American president, and I think, and I will tell anybody, whomever it is, I'm like, if there was no Jackie Robinson, there would be no President Obama.
Right.
I think that. What he did, and that when my father came in, what all of those players did to get us where we are in this country is why we are where we are. Political, you could be Republican, Independent, or Democrat, but you have somebody who doesn't look like the norm. And I can say the next one could be a female president. So I think that all of that were different steps that helped mold this country to where it is going right now, and hopefully it's going in a better direction than where we are right now.
Right. Well, you look around and you think back to before Jackie Robinson broke the color line, you think, okay, yes, we've come a long way, but you also at the same time say, there's a long way still to go.
No, there's definitely a long ways to go, but you have to keep in mind, Jackie broke the color barrier before there was Dr. King. And I think that those are all, to me, little steps that are getting somewhere, and I think that unfortunately, as Americans in this country these days, we have kind of we're very settled to where we are, and that's all of us that need to do more to keep moving it forward. And I think that we've somewhat just stopped. And I think that there's so much more to do for everybody to do.
Now, lately there's been concern about the lack of African-American ball players in big league baseball, and the commissioner's putting together a committee, and I don't know how you remedy that. If it is a problem, it's not as if African-American athletes don't have options. It's just that once, to go to the NFL or to play Major League Baseball, it was a no-brainer. You'd play Major League Baseball.
Right, because you have a longer career.
Right.
I think that for most, I can't even think of these players' names that are African-American, but they play in the NBA, that like a Kobe Bryant, he didn't come from a poor family at all. He had a decent,
right,
good upbringing. And I think that for a lot of kids, that when you are not in a middle class, if there's even a middle class any longer, or upper middle class level, can you afford a bat? Can you afford a baseball? Can you get? Do you have other people to play with?
Can you find a dozen people to?
Right, or at least another one other person to at least play catch with, or to do something with. And I don't know if that's really accessible to a lot of kids, and maybe they're not parks. And unfortunately, because again, this country, because we're not moving in the right direction, do you want your kids to go outside and play anymore? Because a lot of kids don't. Arizona, I could play, but there was always a parent, there was always a tattletale parent somewhere, that if you did something wrong, somebody was going to tell. But now the attitude is, oh, it's not my problem. And that's not us moving forward as a group. And I mean that as not just African Americans, but anybody. And I think that all children should be able to play outside. But if there are no parks for them to play, how can they play? And they can't. And I think that's the biggest thing. Yes, Major League Baseball has a commission. They're setting up the whole team to try to figure it out. And I can also say from the financial side, since people are like, I need money. You get quicker money playing in the NBA and the NFL than you do Major League Baseball, because you have single A, double A, and triple A. You really hope somebody breaks their leg so you get called up.
Right. You don't have to worry about 3 years in the minors or 4 years in the minors.
And you get instant gratification. You get huge signing bonuses. So. Right. Major League Baseball does play quite well, because sometimes I'm like, wow, if I just had your dinner money, I'd be really rich.
Well, and you look at baseball and you say, okay, there's always going to be a place in the game for the star African-American athletes. To me, it was always a question of that 25th, 24th man on the roster.
Right.
Who does that spot go to? And a lot of times, and this may be a generalization, the African-American player ends up at AAA, and that's the way it was for the longest time. So, and now you have the great influx of players from all around the world.
Right,
not just the Hispanic ball players, but from Asia.
And, you have everybody. And so you have everybody playing a sport that they love, and so it's not as centralized as Caucasian and black.
Right.
So now you have Hispanic, then you have Latin, and then you have Asian, and so you're like, okay, so where you have to be, again, 10 times better. I can say, as when I was younger, especially during my dad's era, that myself and maybe your daughter can have the exact same grades, everything, but I needed to have one more A, because I needed to be one step ahead for them to even give me any recognition. For back, during that era. And I think now for African-American players, you have a lot more competition than when you did before. Because now you're like, you have no idea who's coming at you.
Right.
From different countries. And you can't say, well, gosh, if I did that. Darren Jackson, who was played here and our radio host, he played in Japan.
Right.
And he said it was great. And he's like, oh, yeah. And he talks about some stuff on air that things were very different. And I was like, oh, wow. I wouldn't know that. I haven't been to Japan. And what for African-American kid that lives by 35th Street can go to Japan?
Not too many.
Right.
If any. Can we expect someday for you to chronicle all this knowledge of Joe Black in some form of a book?
Yes, you can. I actually have finished the manuscript with another writer, Chuck Schaffner. It's going to be Joe Black, More Than a Dodger. and it would be my father's whole entire life. And of course, it includes baseball. The first chapter will be in about 1952 when he won the game, the victory of all, and the final chapter will be about my father dying. It was a long ways. That's till he was 78, so you have a lot of reading to do. But yeah, Peter O'Malley did the
that's
foreword.
50 years of...
Yeah, of knowledge and everything. So you have baseball, you have corporate, you have, different programs he started. I am the child, and, when you're the child of somebody, they're like, okay, just do this, do that. Your parents really don't ever tell what they do. They don't brag about themselves. I did not know until Peter O'Malley wrote the foreword, and I read it, and I was like, wow. My dad's the one who started the baseball assistants. Now it's called baseball assistants team. It was the baseball, oh my gosh, I just went blank. It was named something else, and they switched it to baseball assistants team later. And I was like, I had no idea, because he wanted Major League Baseball and people to go out and help players. I mean, my father was friends with Ken Griffey Jr. because of Ken Griffey Sr., and stuff like that. Senior's a lot younger than my father would be, though. And he would talk to players, and he was like, so we need to help these other players. We need to help umpires. We need to help anybody in the Major League Baseball family. The Negro League players, my dad got to get insurance and everything because they had nothing. My dad may have made $10,000 with Brooklyn, and a Negro League player may have made $2,000.
Yeah. Well, and your dad was big, as I understand it, along with Jackie Robinson, in trying to institute a pension plan.
Right. For the Negro League players.
For those ball players.
Because they were older. My dad was a rookie at 28, and, Satchel Paige was, what, 50? Probably
pick a number.
Died.
Nobody
who knows? Knew. Right. And so it's one of those things that they were great players. They just didn't get the chance. They needed Jackie Robinson to be 1940. And not 1947, for them to have some time to play, because they had enough youth at that point, and they didn't. And it's sad, and I can tell you from what I know, my dad used to help with the Negro League events that would be here at the ballpark. I think there may be one left. One Negro League player, real Negro League player, not their children.
Well, there are those who came along sort of toward the end of the Negro Leagues.
Right, when it was basically over, the Negro Leagues was kind of over, because the sport was integrated at that point. And it's funny, I will tell you, because I have talked to some people that come here, and they're like, oh, I played in the Negro Leagues, and they're 62 years old. And I was like, really?
Really?
My brother's 60. I don't think you did. And they're like, well, and I was like, oh, you mean your dad did? So, that's, a lot of children are saying they play in the Negro Leagues, and they didn't. I mean, any man that's 65 years old, he did not play in the Negro Leagues. So, which is sad that companies believe that.
And that was, I don't know if you can call it one of the victims. That was one of the results of integration of baseball, was the demise of the Negro League, and then I think it lasted, the Indianapolis Clowns might have been the last team, into the mid to late 50s, I think, was about the extent.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know.
But, there's probably a few guys in their 80s floating around.
Right. But I think there's one in Chicago, and I can't think of his name right now, but just one that I know of. And, there was 20 that would come here. I mean, we have the Double Duty Classic here and everything.
I was going to say, you had the benefit of having Double Duty Radcliffe around for a long time.
And he was funny.
He covered just about
everything.
The whole.
In every position.
Right. But, I mean, he went back to the days of Josh Gibson and even before then.
Yeah.
So he was a great character, too. But,
yeah, he was very funny.
But, so we will wait for spring to come to Chicago, which should be, what?
Sunday?
Middle of May?
Yeah, hopefully middle of May when we come back. Because we're here until the 28th for this homestand. Then they're gone until, the second weekend in May. So hopefully by then it will be at least 60.
That sounds good to us.
I know.
All right, Martha Jo Black, thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, And when we come back, we will have former Chicago White Sox knuckleballer Wilbur Wood. You're listening to Sports and Torts on TalkZone.com.